And let's bring in our panel now. Steve Hayes of the Weekly Standard, A.B. Stoddard from The Hill, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. A.B., let's start with you. It is unusual to see this kind of attack.
Well, the problem is that the president is giving Americans the sense that just as he gives up on Congress, he's kind of giving up on his job. They know he's bolting from the building to go to Starbucks and Chipotle. He's getting bored in the cocoon. He's planning his post-presidency. There have been reports about how he wants to perhaps move to New York. He's having lots of dinner parties where he doesn't talk about policy or politics, but the NBA playoffs, anything but his job. And as he has all these difficulties flare up, international crises that are deteriorating, a stubborn economy that doesn't get better, he seems like he's giving up on the job, not just on the gridlock in Congress. And that's really troublesome for the American people, not only because of all the problems we have, but because we're with him for another more than 2 years.
But I suspect, Steve, that some of his advisors might say this is his great strength, campaigning. Why not use it to the full effect? Use the bully pulpit of the presidency.
Because look how it's working. I mean, he is in disastrous standing right now. If you look at where the president was when he was sworn in, just to take the CBS poll as an example, he was 57-37 approval, disapproval when he was sworn in for his second term. He is today in the most recent CBS News poll 40-54. He has lost 34 points in that poll since he was sworn in. And I think AB actually gets it exactly right. It is largely because of the president's sort of flippant attitude toward the presidency. So sue me? I mean, what kind of a president would make that argument? And where he had been buoyed, I think, by the fact that people liked him or people wanted him to succeed, despite the fact that they might have had some questions about his policies, that no longer exists because the president is behaving the way that he's behaving. But I have to also say, it's an indictment of his policies. I mean, the policies that the president campaigned on, they are not working. We can see this whether you're talking about the economy. We can see this whether you're talking about Obamacare. We can see this across the world. There is nowhere that this president can point today and say, there's my success. People get that. You don't have to be paying attention to politics. You don't have to be inside the Beltway and do this for a living to understand that this guy is failing and failing badly.
You mentioned that CBS News poll. There's another poll out, the Quinnipiac poll, and Ed Henry used it in this piece. The president clearly has got to be facing a lot of pressure. Let's take a look at one component of that poll. Which United States president would you consider the worst? Barack Obama leads the pack at 33%. George W. Bush at 28%. Who would have thought that maybe 5 or 6 years ago? Richard Nixon at only 13%. The poll has all the presidents, the post-war presidents. Charles Truman got 0 as the worst president, which is maybe an indictment of the poll itself because in his time he was deeply unpopular.
Well, I guess Nixon is back again, just when we need it.
Tanned, rested, and ready.
Absolutely.
Right.
You know, people talk about him doing the best he can because he's good at campaigning. It turns out Americans are discovering that's what he does best. That could be his only great competence, to campaign, to make speeches. He's a great rhetorician. That's admitted. It's the speeches he gave in 04 and in 08 that made him president. But when you're in your 60th year, campaigning and speeches mean nothing. I mean, he talks about Ukraine, he does nothing. He talks about Syria and Iraq, he does nothing. He talks, and he's talked throughout his presidency, about increasing America's standing in the world. We are despised in the world, ignored in the world. Our standing is lower just about everywhere you look than it was when he came in. And then on domestic affairs, you know, he talked, there was a quote in the New York Times around one of these polls where they had a voter saying, I voted for Obama with hope, but now I've changed. Now there's hope and change for you. He gave people hope, but he doesn't know how to govern. An essential element of governing is to work with the other party. Reagan never had control of the House. It was always in Democratic hands. He passed enormously important legislation, tax reform, all kinds of things, lowering tax rates. He changed the country without controlling Congress. And all Obama can do is whine about the fact that there's the other guys who are in charge of Congress. And he defiantly says, if Congress won't do its job, i.e. enact my agenda, I will do it. Well, that's not what the Constitution says. He's not allowed to do it, and I think he will be stopped. The suit that he mocked, that the Speaker is bringing, is an important suit, and he's already been slapped down severely by the Supreme Court for the recess appointment and other egregious overstepping his bounds.
I'm not convinced that any politician, especially at that level, makes any decision without some sort of internal poll. And polls show that Congress is a lot less popular than President Obama, A.B.
That's true, but if President Obama looks at his record, the difficulty he's had, especially the difficulty he's still having, you would hope that he would want to burnish his legacy, finish the job strong, do something else, solve more problems. To be picking on Congress and saying, I can do it without you, A, tells his base not to get out this fall, I think. It tells Democratic voters, you don't need your member of Congress, because I'm going to just do everything without them anyway. But B, it really seems like he doesn't plan to do anything substantive or significant until throughout the entire remainder of his presidency, and that's really worrisome.
And that's sort of the third stage of the Obama presidency. If you look at him, go back to the very beginning of his presidency when the stimulus passed the House of Representatives on a totally partisan vote. The president had gone up to Capitol Hill to meet with Republicans. Rahm Emanuel had moderate Republicans to the White House to talk to them, but they thought that Republicans would just go along because they were being courted. Republicans wanted substantive changes. They wanted some sense that the president was willing to compromise. He was unwilling to compromise. That's been his problem from the beginning. So that was President Obama the first 2 years. The second, after the 2010 elections, the president decided that he was going to make Republicans the enemy. He was going to campaign against Republicans. And now he's in this third stage, which is sort of the I don't care stage, and it's very unbecoming. I mean, the "so sue me" comment, I think, resonates with people who heard it in a way that says a lot about the president and how he thinks of the job.
That's it for this segment. Coming up next, the